Jake Morrison sat in the large round chamber of the Galactic Council. The room was huge, with curved walls that reached up into darkness. 12 different alien species had their seats arranged in a perfect circle. Each group looked very different from the others. The Vorthic looked like walking crystals that sparkled in the light. The Nephilim were clouds of gas that floated above their chairs. The Zephyrians looked like giant insects with 4 arms each. Jake was the only human in the room today. This was normal. Most days, only one person from each species came to these meetings. Today they were talking about mining rights in a faraway part of space. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. His personal communicator buzzed softly. Jake looked down at the small device on his wrist. The message was marked as top secret. Only a few people on Earth could send him messages like this. Jake opened it carefully, making sure none of the aliens could see his screen. The message was from Admiral Lisa Campbell. Jake had known her for 20 years. She never sent messages unless something big was happening. The message was very short. Project Silent Dawn is complete. Evacuation protocols initiated. All human colonies, ships, and personnel are to return to Sol System immediately. No explanations to be given to council members. Jake read the message 3 times. His hands started to shake a little. Project Silent Dawn was something he had heard whispers about for years, but he never knew what it really was. The government kept it very secret. Even ambassadors like him were not told the details. He looked up at the other council members. They were still arguing about which species could mine which asteroids. Counselor Vexthara from the Vorthic was speaking in her crystal voice. It sounded like wind chimes when she talked. The mining yields in Sector 7 have decreased by 12%, she was saying. We must find new locations if we want to meet our quotas. Jake tried to listen, but his mind was racing. Return to Sol System immediately. That meant Earth. That meant all humans everywhere had to come home. There were millions of humans living on other planets. There were thousands of human ships traveling between the stars. Why did they all have to come back now? Ambassador Morrison, said Supreme. Counselor Morduk. The old Deshan was looking at him with his 3 eyes. You seem distracted. Does your species have any input on the mining discussion? Jake cleared his throat. I apologize, Counselor. I just received a message about a minor administrative matter on Earth. Nothing important. This was a lie, but Jake had become good at lying during his years as a diplomat. He had to be. Sometimes keeping secrets was part of the job. The meeting continued for another hour. Jake participated when he had to, but his thoughts were far away. As soon as the meeting ended, he walked quickly to his private office on the station. Kepler. Station was enormous. It was built like a giant ring around a neutron star. The star gave off lots of energy, which powered the whole station. Millions of beings from different species lived and worked here. It was the center of galactic government. Jake's office had a window that looked out at the neutron star. The star was small, but very bright. It hurt to look at directly. Jake sat at his desk and opened his secure communication system. He sent a coded message to every human facility, ship, and colony he could reach. The message looked innocent to anyone who might intercept it. It talked about budget reviews and family emergencies. But humans who received it would understand. It meant, come home now. Meanwhile, far away on Earth, Dr. Helen Rivers was working in a secret laboratory deep underground. The lab was located beneath the Rocky Mountains in North America. Very few people knew it existed. Dr. Rivers had been working on Project Silent Dawn for 15 years. She was a small woman with gray hair, but her mind was one of the sharpest in human space. She had degrees in physics, engineering, and mathematics. The project was humanity's biggest secret. While other species thought humans were just good at trade and diplomacy, They were actually working on something that would change everything. The project involved bending space and time itself. Dr. Rivers looked at the massive machine in front of her. It was 3 stories tall and filled with cables, computers, and energy collectors. This machine could create a bubble around an entire solar system. Anything inside the bubble would exist in a different layer of reality. Ships could not get in or out. Messages could not pass through. It would be like that part of space simply disappeared. "Status report," she said to her assistant, a young man named Kevin Parks. "All systems are ready, Doctor," Kevin replied. "We can activate the field around the entire Sol system within 6 hours of your command." Dr. Rivers nodded. She had been waiting for this day for a very long time. Humanity had been part of the Galactic Council for 300 years. At first, it seemed like a good thing. Humans learned about new technologies. They made friends with alien species. They traded goods and services across the galaxy. But over time, things changed. The other species began to take humans for granted. They expected humans to solve their problems. They expected humans to mediate their conflicts. They expected humans to provide the ships and workers for dangerous missions. Humans had become the galaxy's servants without realizing it. Dr. Rivers had proposed Project Silent Dawn 20 years ago. The idea was simple but radical. Instead of fighting the other species or trying to negotiate better terms, humanity would simply disappear. They would use advanced technology to remove themselves from normal space-time. The other species would be left to solve their own problems. Her communicator chimed. A message from Admiral Campbell confirmed that the evacuation order had been sent. All over the galaxy, humans were starting to pack their things and head home. Back on Kepler Station, Jake was getting responses to his coded messages. Ship captains were acknowledging the orders. Colony administrators were beginning evacuation procedures. Diplomats at other stations were requesting transfers back to human space. Jake looked out his window at the neutron star again. In a few weeks, he would leave this place forever. The other council members did not know it yet, but they were about to lose their most valuable allies. He wondered what would happen to the galaxy when humans were gone. Captain Ryan Torres was drinking coffee when the coded message arrived. He was sitting in the captain's chair of his cargo ship, the New Denver, watching the stars through the main window. His ship was carrying medical supplies to a Zephyrian colony called Haven Prime. The Zephyrians on Haven Prime were sick. A strange disease was killing them, and they needed human medicine to survive. Ryan had made this trip many times before. The insect-like aliens were good customers and paid well for human medical technology. Ryan's communication officer, Lieutenant Emma Davis, handed him a small datapad. "Captain, we just received a priority message from Earth Command." Ryan read the message twice. It looked like a routine administrative notice about budget reviews and personnel transfers. But Ryan had been a ship captain for 20 years. He knew how to read between the lines. This was the evacuation signal. "Emma," he said quietly, "prepare the ship for immediate departure after we finish our delivery." Emma looked confused. "Sir, we have 3 more stops scheduled after Haven Prime. The Phallicin colony ordered construction materials, and the Vorthic research station needs those computer components." "Cancel them all," Ryan said. "Tell them we have a family emergency and need to return to human space immediately." Ryan walked to his private cabin and opened his secure communication system. He sent messages to his wife and children on Mars, telling them to pack their things and prepare to move to Earth. He also sent coded messages to other human ship captains he knew, asking about their family situations. The responses came back quickly. Every human captain was receiving the same orders. Ships all over the galaxy were being called home. 2 hours later, The new Denver docked at Haven Prime. The Zephyrian colony was built inside large domes on the surface of a desert planet. The domes protected the aliens from the harsh environment outside. Colony Administrator Zeftal met Ryan at the docking bay. The Zephyrian was tall and thin, with 4 arms and compound eyes that looked like jewels. His translator device made his clicking speech sound like English. Captain Torres, thank you for bringing the medicine so quickly. Our people are very grateful for human assistance. Ryan handed over the medical containers. You are welcome, Administrator. I hope your people recover soon. Will we see you again next month for the regular supply run? Zeftal asked. Ryan felt bad about lying to the alien. They had worked together for 5 years and had become friends. But his orders were clear. No explanations. I am not sure about next month, Ryan said. I have some family problems to deal with back home. Another captain might take over my route for a while. Zeftal's compound eyes seemed to show concern. I hope your family problems are not serious. Thank you for understanding, Ryan said. He shook hands with the alien and returned to his ship dot as the new Denver left Haven Prime. Ryan felt like he was leaving his old life behind. He did not know why all humans were being called home, but he trusted his government. They must have a good reason. Meanwhile, on a research station near the galactic core, Professor Emma Davis was having a similar conversation. She had been working with Nephilim scientists for 3 years, studying how to change the atmosphere of dead planets to make them suitable for life. The Nephilim were strange creatures that looked like clouds of glowing gas. They could change their shape at will and spoke by making their bodies vibrate. Professor Davis had learned to understand their language through years of practice. Her research partner was a Nephilim called Flowing Wind Through Stars. The alien had chosen this name because it sounded poetic in the Nephilim language. Professor Davis usually just called him Wind. Emma Davis, Wind said, his gaseous body pulsing with soft blue light. The atmospheric conversion project is almost complete. We will be able to test it on the dead world of Kepler 442b next month. Professor Davis looked at the research data on her computer screen. They had been working on this project for 3 years. It could help both humans and aliens create new worlds to live on. But now she had to abandon it. Wind, I have received news from Earth that requires my immediate return. There has been a family emergency. The Nephilim's light changed from blue to purple, which meant confusion. This is unexpected, Emma Davis. Is there anything we can do to help? No, but thank you for offering. I need to leave as soon as possible. When will you return to complete our work? Professor Davis packed her personal belongings into a small bag. I do not know. Perhaps another human scientist will be assigned to continue the research. But she knew this was not true. If all humans were being called home, no one would replace her. On the mining station orbiting Proxima Centauri b, engineer Carl Baker was shutting down critical systems. The mining station produced rare metals that were essential for building starships. Without these metals, the Council would have trouble maintaining their space fleets. Carl had designed many of the mining machines himself. The alien workers did not understand how to fix them when they broke down. They needed human engineers to keep everything running. His alien supervisor was a Kraxan warrior named Battlescar. The Kraxans were large, muscular beings who loved fighting, but were also good at heavy industrial work. Human Carl, Battlescar said in his deep voice, why are you shutting down the primary extraction systems? We have quotas to meet. Carl did not look up from his control panel. I have been called back to Earth for an emergency. I need to leave immediately. Who will maintain the machines while you are gone? You will need to contact Earth Command and request a replacement engineer. But Carl knew no replacement would come. He was abandoning his post, just like thousands of other humans across the galaxy. Battlescar looked angry. This is not acceptable. The mining operation cannot function without human technical support. I am sorry, Carl said. This is beyond my control. On the diplomatic station near the Galactic Rim, Ambassador Susan Lee was canceling all her scheduled meetings with the aquatic Thalassen government. The Thalassens lived underwater and needed special equipment to meet with air-breathing species. Susan had been negotiating a trade agreement between humans and Thalassens for 6 months. The deal would have been worth billions of credits to both species. Now she was walking away from it all. Prime Minister Deep Current was not happy about the cancelled meetings. The Thalassen's translator made his underwater speech sound like whispers. Ambassador Lee, we were close to finalizing the trade agreement. Why must you leave now? I have received urgent orders from my government. I must return to Earth immediately. When? Will the negotiations resume? Susan gathered her diplomatic papers and sealed them in her briefcase. I do not know. Another human representative may contact you in the future. But she knew this was a lie. All across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. Human doctors were leaving alien hospitals. Human teachers were abandoning their students at alien universities. Human merchants were canceling contracts and heading home. The exodus was quiet and polite, but it was complete. Humanity was pulling out of galactic civilization, one person at a time, and nobody knew why. 3 weeks had passed since the quiet exodus began. Counselor Vex Thara walked through the empty corridors of Kepler Station, her crystal body clicking softly against the metal floor. Something was very wrong. The human sections of the station were almost completely empty. The cafeteria, where humans used to eat lunch, was closed. The human cultural center was locked up tight. Even the human janitors who cleaned the hallways were gone. Vex Thara had always been good at noticing patterns. It was a skill that made the Vorthik excellent scientists and investigators. The pattern she was seeing now made her very worried. She entered the emergency council chamber, where the other species leaders were already waiting. Supreme Counselor Mordak sat at the head of the curved table. His 3 Vishan eyes looked tired and concerned. Thank you all for coming on short notice, Mordak said. We have a serious situation to discuss. Jake Morrison sat in the human chair, but he was the only human in the entire room. Usually there were dozens of human staff members, advisors, and security personnel at council meetings. Today there was just Jake. Counselor Zephi of the insectoid Zephyrians spoke first. His 4 arms moved nervously as he talked. We have gathered intelligence reports from across our territories. Human personnel are disappearing from critical positions everywhere. He activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy. Red dots marked locations where humans had suddenly left their jobs. There were thousands of red dots scattered across the map. On Haven Prime, our medical supply deliveries have stopped. Zephi continued. The human captain who serviced our colony for years suddenly left, claiming a family emergency. No replacement has been sent. Naldrith of the warrior Kraxon stood up. He was a large, muscular being with thick armor plating covering his body. The mining operation at Proxima Centauri has shut down completely. The human engineer abandoned his post without proper training for his replacement. Our ship construction is already falling behind schedule. More reports came in from the other species. The Thalassen trade negotiations had been abandoned. The Nephilim atmospheric research project was left unfinished. Human merchants had stopped delivering goods to dozens of colonies. All eyes turned to Jake Morrison. He sat calmly in his chair, but inside he was very nervous. He had been preparing for this moment for weeks. Ambassador Morrison, said Supreme Counselor Mordak, these reports are very concerning. Can you explain why so many humans are leaving their positions at the same time? Jake had practiced his answer many times. Respected counselors, humanity is currently undergoing an internal assessment period. We are reviewing our galactic commitments and making some administrative adjustments to improve efficiency. This was mostly true, but it was not the whole truth. Jake could not tell them about Project Silent Dawn. He could not explain that humanity was preparing to disappear completely. Counselor Vexthara's crystal body flashed with bright light, which meant she was thinking very hard. Ambassador, this internal assessment seems to require the withdrawal of nearly all human personnel from Council space. This is unprecedented in 300 years of human membership. I understand your concerns, Jake said. However, this is a temporary situation. Normal operations will resume after our administrative adjustments are complete. Naldrith slammed his armored fist on the table. This is unacceptable. Human abandonment of critical infrastructure is causing serious problems for all our peoples. We demand a full explanation. Jake remained calm. I can only share what I have been authorized to tell you. Humanity requires a period of internal development. We appreciate your patience during this transition. The room erupted in angry voices from different species. The Zephyrians clicked angrily. The Kraxans roared their displeasure. Even the usually peaceful Thalassans made upset gurgling sounds. Supreme Counselor Mordock raised his hand for silence. Ambassador Morrison, surely you understand that human withdrawal from so many critical positions is causing significant hardship. Our economies and supply chains depend heavily on human participation. This was exactly what Dr. Rivers had predicted. Humanity had become so integrated into galactic civilization that their sudden absence created major problems. Jake felt a little guilty about the hardship they were causing, but he trusted that his government knew what they were doing. I will relay your concerns to Earth, Jake said. However, I cannot provide a timeline for when normal operations will resume. While the council meeting continued, far away on other worlds, the last human operatives were completing their final missions. Commander Alex Stone was working with a Vorthek science team on a secret research project. The Vorthek were studying new weapons technology that could destroy entire planets. Alex had been gathering intelligence about this project for 2 years. His Vorthek supervisor, Research Prime Kethvara, had no idea that Alex was actually a spy. She thought he was just a human engineer helping with the project. Human Alex, Kethvara said, your work on the quantum destabilization matrix has been excellent. We should be ready for testing within the month. Alex nodded and smiled, but inside he was copying the final data files to his hidden storage device. Earth needed to know about this weapon before they activated Project Silent Dawn. Actually, Kethvara, I just received terrible news from home. My mother is very sick, and I need to return to Earth immediately. The crystal being's body dimmed. With what Alex had learned was sadness. This is unfortunate timing, human Alex. You are the only one who understands the matrix calculations. I am very sorry, Alex said. Perhaps I can send detailed instructions to my replacement. But Alex knew no replacement would come. He was one of the last human agents in Council space, and soon he would be gone too. Back on Earth, Dr. Rivers was monitoring the evacuation progress from her underground laboratory. Her screens showed the locations of every human ship, colony, and operative in the galaxy. Status report, she said to her assistant Kevin Parks. 97% of all human assets have begun their journey home, Kevin reported. The remaining 3% are our deep cover operatives. They should complete their final missions within the next 72 hours. Dr. Rivers nodded. Everything was going according to plan. Soon, every human in the galaxy would be safely behind the dimensional barrier. What about the Council's reaction? She asked. Intelligence reports indicate they are very concerned, but not yet suspicious of our true intentions. Ambassador Morrison is doing an excellent job maintaining the diplomatic facade. Dr. Rivers looked at the massive machine that would soon change everything. The dimensional field generator was ready to activate. Once it was turned on, the Sol system would effectively disappear from normal space. No alien ship would be able to find them. No alien message would be able to reach them. Humanity would be completely alone for the first time in 300 years. On Kepler Station, the emergency council session was ending. The alien leaders were frustrated and worried, but they still did not understand what was really happening. "This meeting is adjourned," Supreme Counselor Mordak announced. "All species are instructed to monitor human activities in their territories and report any further developments." Jake Morrison stood up and walked toward the exit. Several alien counselors tried to stop him for private conversations, but he politely declined. He had his own preparations to make in 3 days. He would be the last human to leave council space. After that, the galaxy would have to solve its own problems. Jake Morrison stood in front of the Galactic Council for the last time. The curved chamber was packed with alien representatives from all 11 species. Their eyes, sensors, and other organs were all focused on him. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Supreme Counselor Mordak spoke first. His voice was serious and worried. "Ambassador Morrison, we have called this emergency session because the situation has become critical. Human withdrawal from galactic civilization is causing massive problems across all our territories." Jake nodded politely. He was wearing his best diplomatic uniform, but his hands were shaking slightly. In his pocket was a small device that would change everything in the next few minutes. Counselor Vex Thara activated a holographic display. The image showed trade routes across the galaxy. Many of the lines were now flashing red. "Our economic analysis shows that 47% of all galactic trade depends on human logistics networks. These networks are collapsing as human personnel abandon their posts." Zephai of the Zephyrians stood up angrily. 3 of our colonies are now facing food shortages because human cargo ships have stopped making deliveries. Our people may starve if this continues. Naldrith of the Kraxans was even more upset. 2 of our military shipyards have shut down completely. We cannot build new warships without the rare metals from human-operated mining stations. Jake listened to all their complaints. He felt sorry for the problems they were facing, but he also knew this was necessary. Dr. Rivers had explained it to him in their final communication. The galaxy had become too dependent on human help. It was time for humanity to step back and let the other species learn to solve their own problems. "Respected counselors," Jake said, "I understand your concerns. However, I must inform you that humanity has made a decision about our future participation in galactic affairs." The room became very quiet. Even the background hum of the stations. Life support systems seemed to get quieter. "We have decided that humanity requires a period of isolation for internal development. Therefore, we are formally suspending all human participation in council activities, effective immediately." The chamber erupted in chaos. Aliens shouted in their native languages. Some species made angry noises that their translators could not convert into words. Supreme Counselor Mordak banged his gavel repeatedly, trying to restore order. "Ambassador Morrison!" Mordak shouted over the noise. "You cannot simply abandon your responsibilities to the galactic community. This is unprecedented." Jake pulled the small device from his pocket. It looked like an ordinary communication device, but it was actually a personal teleporter. Only a few humans in the galaxy had access to this technology. "I am sorry, Jake. Sighed, but the decision has been made at the highest levels of human government. We wish you all well in your future endeavors." Before anyone could respond, Jake pressed the button on the device. There was a flash of bright light, and then Jake. Morrison disappeared completely. Where he had been standing, there was now only empty air. The council chamber fell silent. Several alien species had never seen teleportation technology before. They did not understand what had just happened. Counselor Vexthara was the first to speak. He is gone, completely gone. My sensors cannot detect any trace of him. Supreme Counselor Mordak looked stunned. Try to contact Earth immediately. We need explanations. But when they tried to send messages to Earth, they received only automated responses. The messages all said the same thing. Human space is temporarily closed outside communications. Do not attempt to enter the Sol system. 3 days later, Admiral Victor Hayes commanded a council investigation fleet approaching the border of human space. Victor was a Vishan, like Supreme Counselor Mordok, but he was much younger. He had been chosen to lead this mission because he had worked with humans before and understood their technology. The fleet consisted of 12 ships from different species. They were not coming to fight. They just wanted answers. "Sir," said Navigation Officer Plexstar, "we are approaching the outer edge of the Sol system." Victor looked at the main screen. He expected to see the usual collection of human space stations, mining platforms, and patrol ships. Instead, he saw something that made no sense at all. That there was a wall in space, that it was not made of metal or rock, or any material Victor had ever seen. It looked like a curtain of shimmering energy that completely surrounded the human solar system. The wall stretched in all directions as far as their sensors could detect. What in the galaxy is that? Victor asked. His science officer, Dr. Quindal of the Vorthik, was studying the readings from their instruments. "Admiral, this energy barrier appears to be some kind of dimensional displacement field. I have never seen anything like it. Can we get through it?" "I do not think so, sir. Our sensors cannot penetrate it at all. It is as if human space has been removed from normal reality." Victor ordered his ships to try different approaches. They fired energy beams at the barrier, but the beams simply disappeared when they touched it. They tried to fly around it, but it seemed to extend infinitely in all directions. They sent radio messages toward Earth, but the messages vanished into the barrier without any response. On Earth, Dr. Rivers was monitoring the Council fleet from our underground laboratory. The dimensional field was working perfectly. The alien ships were trying everything they could think of, but they could not break through. "Doctor," said Kevin Parks, "the barrier is holding steady. All Council ships are unable to penetrate our defensive perimeter." Dr. Rivers smiled. Project Silent Dawn had succeeded beyond her wildest dreams. Humanity was now completely safe from any outside interference. "What about our observation capabilities?" she asked. "Perfect. We can see and hear everything happening in normal space, but they cannot detect us at all. We are effectively invisible to the rest of the galaxy." Dr. Rivers walked over to a large window that looked out at the Earth's surface. She could see cities, forests, and oceans. Millions of humans were living their lives normally, not knowing that their entire solar system had just been moved to a different layer of reality. Back in Council space, the different alien species were reacting to humanity's disappearance in different ways. The scientific Vorthik immediately began studying the energy barrier. They brought their most advanced equipment to the edge of human space and tried to understand how the technology worked. But their instruments could not make sense of what they were seeing. The militant Kraxans were preparing for war. They assumed that humans were planning some kind of attack and were gathering their fleets to defend against it. But they could not fight an enemy they could not reach. The philosophical Veshans called emergency meetings to discuss what humanity's disappearance meant for galactic civilization. They had many theories, but no answers. The gas-like Nephilim were the only species that seemed to understand part of what humans had accomplished. As energy beings themselves, they could sense the dimensional distortion around human space. But even they could not figure out how to cross the barrier. Trade networks began collapsing within days. Human merchant ships had carried goods between different species for centuries. Without these ships, many colonies could not get the supplies they needed. Research projects failed as human scientists and engineers abandoned their work. The atmospheric conversion project that Professor Emma Davis had been working on stopped completely. The Zephyrian medical research that depended on human expertise came to a halt. Even simple tasks became difficult without human help. Humans had been the galaxy's problem solvers for so long that other species had forgotten how to handle many situations on their own. Supreme Counselor Mordak sat alone in his office, staring out at the stars. In 300 years of galactic government, nothing like this had ever happened. Entire species had simply vanished from the galaxy, leaving behind only an impenetrable wall of energy. The worst part was that the Council was helpless to do anything about it. They could not negotiate with humans because they could not contact them. They could not threaten humans because they could not reach them. They could not even understand what humans had done. For the first time in his long life, Mordak felt completely lost. 1 year had passed since humanity disappeared behind their energy barrier. The galaxy was falling apart. Captain Ryan Torres stood on the bridge of his ship, looking out at the stars from inside human space. His cargo vessel New Denver was now patrolling the inner edge of the dimensional barrier. He could see everything happening in normal space, but the aliens outside could not see him. "Captain," said his communications officer Emma Davis, "we are receiving another desperate message from the Council. They are begging for humanity to return to help them." Ryan shook his head sadly. "Same message they have been sending for months." "Play it anyway." The voice of Supreme Counselor Mordak filled the bridge. He sounded tired and defeated. "To our former human allies, the Galactic Council formally apologizes for any past grievances. We offer humanity complete autonomy within Council space and full control over your own territories. Please respond to this message. The galaxy needs your help." Emma turned off the recording. "That is the 15th apology message this month." Ryan looked at the tactical display showing the galaxy beyond their barrier. Red warning symbols marked areas of conflict and economic collapse. Too little, too late. The galactic economy had crashed completely within 6 months of humanity's disappearance. Without human cargo ships, trade routes failed. Without human engineers, mining operations shut down. Without human diplomats, old conflicts between species began again. The Kraxans and Zephyrians had started a border war over mining rights in the Vega system. Both species had depended on human mediators to solve their disputes peacefully. Without humans to negotiate treaties, they went back to fighting with weapons. The war had been going on for 8 months. Thousands of aliens were dead, and both species were running out of resources to continue fighting. But neither side would surrender because they did not trust each other enough to negotiate without human help. The Vorthik had become completely obsessed with understanding the human barrier technology. They had built massive research stations around the edge of human space, studying the energy wall day and night. But their scientists could not figure out how it worked. The obsession was destroying Vorthik society. They had stopped trading with other species. They had abandoned their colonies to focus all resources on barrier research. Many Vorthik were starving because food production had been neglected. The gaseous Nephilim had tried to work with the Vorthik on understanding the barrier, but the crystal beings refused to share their research. This broke a friendship that had lasted for thousands of years. On Earth, Dr. Helen Rivers was reading intelligence reports about the galactic collapse. Her underground laboratory had become the center of human decision-making. The old government still existed, But all major choices about humanity's future were made here. The situation is worse than we predicted, she told her staff during their weekly meeting. Several alien governments have completely collapsed. Pirates and raiders are attacking undefended colonies. Some species are fighting civil wars. Jake Morrison, who had returned to Earth after his dramatic exit from the Council, was now Director of Galactic Affairs. Should we consider helping them? He asked. Dr. Rivers shook her head firmly. This is exactly what needed to happen. For 300 years, we solved their problems for them. They never learned to handle conflicts on their own. Now they are learning the hard way. Kevin Parks pulled up a star map showing the current state of the galaxy. The Thalassian Republic has split into 3 separate governments. The aquatic species cannot agree on trade policies without human mediation. What about the Thessians? Jake asked. Supreme Counselor Mordak is still trying to hold the council together, but he is fighting a losing battle. Only 5 species still participate in council meetings. The others have withdrawn to protect their own territories. Dr. Rivers studied the map carefully. Large sections of space were now marked as lawless zones where no government had control. Pirates and raiders moved freely through these areas, attacking whoever they wanted. The most successful raiders were former Kraxon military units, who had gone rogue when their government could no longer pay them. These warrior groups had advanced weapons and ships, making them very dangerous to civilian colonies. There is something else, Kevin said quietly. We are detecting massive refugee movements. Millions of aliens are fleeing their home systems because of wars, economic collapse, and pirate attacks. Dr. Rivers felt a moment of guilt. She had known that humanity's disappearance would cause problems, but she had not expected the collapse to be so complete or so violent. But then she remembered why they had started Project Silent Dawn in the first place. The galaxy had taken humanity for granted. They had expected humans to solve every problem, mediate every conflict, and provide every solution. It was time for the other species to grow up and take responsibility for their own actions. On the abandoned Kepler station, automated systems still maintained basic life support, but most of the station was empty. Supreme Counselor Mordak sat alone in the great council chamber, staring at the empty chairs where the other species used to sit. The Kraxons had withdrawn from the council to focus on their war with the Zephyrians. The Vorthic had left to study the human barrier. The Nephilim had retreated to their home worlds after their friendship with the Vorthic ended. The Thalassians were too busy with their civil war to attend meetings. Only Mordak and a few loyal staff members remained on the Thaw station. The great galactic government that had ruled for thousands of years was dying. Mordak, as assistant, a young Thessian named Del Mar, entered the chamber. Sir, we have received reports that the Andromeda colonies are under attack by Kraxon raiders. They are requesting military assistance. Mordak laughed bitterly. What military? Our defense fleets were mostly human ships with human crews. Our weapons were built in human factories with human engineers. We have nothing left to send them. What should I tell the colonists? Tell them to evacuate if they can. There is nothing else we can do. Delmar left to send the message. Mordak continued sitting in his chair, surrounded by empty seats and broken dreams. Back on Earth, humanity was thriving. Without the constant demands of galactic politics, humans could focus on their own development. New technologies were being invented. New worlds in the Sol system were being colonized. Art, music, and literature were experiencing a golden age. Dr. Rivers often wondered if they had made the right choice. The galaxy was suffering without human help, but humanity was happier and more prosperous than ever before. Doctor, Kevin Parks said, interrupting her thoughts, long-range sensors are detecting something interesting. Several species are starting to cooperate without human mediation. Dr. Rivers looked at the sensor data. In some parts of the galaxy, desperate aliens were learning to work together to survive. The Nephilim and some Thalassane groups had formed a mutual defense pact against raiders. A few Zephyrian colonies had made peace agreements with local Vorthic settlements. It is happening slowly, Kevin continued, but some aliens are learning to solve their own problems. Dr. Rivers smiled. Good. That was always the goal. Jake Morrison looked up from his reports. Do you think we will ever rejoin galactic civilization? Dr. Rivers walked over to the window and looked out at the Earth. Maybe someday, but not until they prove they can function without us. Not until they learn to see us as equals instead of servants. She turned back to her staff. For now, we watch and wait. If the galaxy truly changes, if the species learn to cooperate and respect each other, then perhaps we can talk about lowering the barrier. And if they do not change? Dr. Rivers shrugged. Then we stay here, safe and independent, for as long as necessary. We have everything we need in human space. The rest of the galaxy will have to decide its own fate. Outside the barrier, the galactic civilization that had lasted for millennia continued its slow collapse. Species that had once worked together now fought endless wars. Trade networks that had connected thousands of worlds lay in ruins. The great dream of galactic unity was dying, but in the quiet of human space, protected by their wall of energy, humanity watched and waited. They had chosen silence over conflict, absence over submission, and in their silence they had achieved the greatest victory of all, complete freedom from a galaxy that had never truly valued them. The Council was dead. The galaxy was broken, but humanity was finally free.